Namaste. I'm Dr. Rachna Kucheria, founder DocGenie Telemedicine and a family physician. Did my education here, my medical school and post-graduation. Then I moved to the US, California in particular, and went ahead to do further studies, a master's in public health and then a residency in family medicine in Los Angeles. I worked after this in senior leadership positions in the Los Angeles area, working with groups and clinic networks who serve the underserved, um, the uninsured, and those with minimum benefits. I moved back to India in 2008 for personal reasons and have been practicing here in New Delhi since then. I also hold a license in the US and so often go back and do clinical practice there as well. I am born and raised in a family of doctors. My father is a surgeon and continues to practice at 90. Not major surgeries, no, but definitely advising patients who still find trust and great faith in his counsel, as do I actually many times for many of my very bad wound patients and others. My mother is a cytogeneticist, a PhD, and so that's all I saw growing up. Didn't really have much other variety. Um, since I also loved science and I was growing up at an age where these were some of the only options you did if you liked science and you got through med school, I just went ahead with it. Yeah, at home growing up, I did face bias. I belong to a conservative Marwari family, and socially there was bias. I have two brothers, and many times my social restrictions were much more than theirs. My curfew times were much earlier than theirs. Also, at the time that we were deciding after medical school about what paths to take, um, I was very clearly told that I would not be able to, I was not allowed to travel overseas for any further education if I was not married. But my brothers had no such conditions. Um, I will say to your next point of biases at work. Um, in my brief work career in the US in leadership positions, um, I was lucky enough not to face this at all between men, women, nothing. But I will say that working in leadership positions in Delhi specifically, uh, there is uh, there is somewhat of a bias in very high leadership positions. You're never um, in that top club, um, and unfortunately, the reverse also exists. That there isn't really a women's leadership support group, which I find sad. At a recent meeting, I'll give you an example. There was a bunch of us clinicians at a meeting, at a CME meeting, and spouses were invited. So a lot of women were there, and most of them happened to be physicians. We were just going around the table introducing ourselves. And the common thread, to my surprise and great delight, actually, and it was an eye opening evening with all the women sitting there, is that how they had changed their careers in like 90-degree angles or 180 degrees to accommodate having babies, families, or for the fact that their husbands had gone off to another country to pursue further degrees, and I was not the only one. So this was really empowering and really drove home the fact. And actually, the men sat and applauded all of us, saying that you ladies here are much stronger than we are. And in that forum, rightly so, because they were allowed to stick to whatever it was they were doing and just take the path forward linearly. Whereas all of us, had curveballs, had Z tracks in our career paths, and just taken it on and just moved right on. So I say, coming back to your point on bias at work, I wish that women in leadership positions in healthcare, I'm talking about specifically, also were more supportive of each other and formed groups and clubs, where we had the in, where we went out in the evenings as well, or in the daytime if that suited us, or for breakfast. You don't have to belong to the men's evening drinks club or the corner cigarette club or anything. We can have our own, whatever it is, without feeling shy about it, whether it's a sari club or whether let's meet for a spa date club. I feel that this part, maybe the younger generation we're passing the baton on to, will do a better job of. I would start first with resilience. And this is in no particular order, but whatever comes to mind. Resilience, I guess you have to count that. I've moved continents twice in my career. So that requires some resilience, to be able to take what comes, sometimes take the first job, sometimes take even voluntary jobs. When I first entered the workplace in the US, I had nothing on my resume except degrees, and that didn't count for much, because I didn't have the license there. So in 6 months, I totted up 4 or 5 volunteer jobs and got my resume sort of going. So resilience. And back to India, again, the kind of work I was doing in the US, for which there are many, many molds, a medical director position really did not and still does not exist, barring a very few positions here in India. So again, to find a niche for myself where I could satisfy all aspects of the work experience and training that I'd had, required some resilience, and to be satisfied with that, basically. So resilience, I would say, wherever life takes you, wherever you land, make the best of it, continue to work hard, and stay positive. The other one I would share is that, have a code that you operate by, your own value system. And I wouldn't go so far ahead as to preach, but whatever that value system is, at a very basic, what is it that you do when no one's watching? I really like this line. And this has been my code. And then over time, you find that this becomes your reputation, and finally, hopefully, a legacy that you can pass on. So, without knowing it, I guess I worked very hard to build a reputation. Um, and I did have my family's legacy to sort of carry on. And I realized that when I came to work in the same work environment that both my parents have. And so slowly and slowly, you live by your own code of ethics, and you realize a reputation is being built, that you hopefully are proud to call your own. And let me also let you know the very obvious, that it takes decades to build, and it can be lost in very easily and very, very quickly. We all know bad news travels fast and it travels quickly. So the third thing I'd like to say is, stay learning, stay humble, and one will keep you the other. So if you stay learning, you feel like you truly believe that you can never know it all, then you will stay humble. And if you stay humble, then hopefully you will have the humility to know, realize, and accept truthfully, that you don't know it all. But you will be honest about it. You may not know all the answers, but your intent is the purest that it can be. So stay learning, stay humble. And I think the last point, because one can't go on with this, but is have fun, find fun, make fun any moment that you can.